You know, it happens to almost every single one of us at some point. Like, you're just at the park or maybe sitting on your living room floor, and you just happen to catch the eye of an animal.
Oh yeah, like your dog staring back at you.
Exactly. Your dog, or maybe a crow perched on a chain link fence, or, I mean, even an ape if you're spending the day at the zoo. You lock eyes for a second, and there is this quiet, almost instinctual question that just pops into your head.
Right, you're asking, how much is this creature actually like us?
Yes. It's this profoundly human moment where we look across that species divide, and we immediately wonder if they are running the same kind of internal software that we are.
We really want to know if there is a recognizable mind looking back at us.
Right. So we immediately start running them through this mental checklist. We ask ourselves, well, can it use a tool the way I do? Or, can it figure out a puzzle?
Could it learn a few words if I taught it?
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive, where we are going to explore the mechanics behind that exact feeling. We have this really fascinating stack of source material today, centered around an excerpted essay on animal minds.
It's a great piece.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack a massive, subtly misleading assumption that most of us make about intelligence without even realizing we're doing it.
An assumption that honestly profoundly warps how we interact with the natural world around us.
Yeah, and that assumption is that intelligence is essentially this single vertical ladder.
Right, the ladder model.
Right, so we tend to picture this tall ladder where you have, the simple instinct-driven creatures down at the very bottom, then the slightly more clever mammals a few rungs up.
And then us.
Yeah, then us humans sitting very proudly right on the top rung, just looking down at the rest of creation. We treat nature like it's like a video game leaderboard.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
And humans always have to get the high score, right? But the sources we are looking at today argue that grading animals based on whether they can do human things is, well, completely missing the point of what intelligence actually is.
Yeah, I mean, we do it because it's comfortable. We are using the only yardstick we intimately understand, which is our own human cognition.
Right.
But the fundamental argument of our source text is that nature was never arranged like a ladder at all. Intelligence is not this single linear progression toward human thought.
So it's not a straight line upwards.
Not at all. Instead, intelligence has evolved independently, many times over, along wildly different paths. And it did this to solve entirely different environmental problems.
So basically, once you dismantle that imaginary ladder, the animal world completely transforms. It stops being the strict hierarchy of lesser and greater creatures.
Yeah, it becomes something much more interesting.
It becomes this vast branching gallery of minds. And I think the crucial takeaway here is that these minds aren't just, cheaper, less impressive versions of human minds.
Right, they're genuinely fascinatingly other.
Other. Exactly. So today, we are going to walk through that gallery. And for anyone listening, we're taking our time with this, so you don't need a biology degree to follow along.
Nope, not at all. And if we want to truly abandon our human-centric bias, we have to start by looking at a form of intelligence that evolved in almost complete isolation from our own.
Which brings us to the octopus.
Yes, the perfect starting point.
So for us vertebrates, and just to clarify, that means you, me, anyone listening who happens to have a bony spine.
Right, animals with a backbone.
Right. So for us vertebrates, our intelligence is housed in this heavily armored centralized skull. We're warm-blooded, we walk on land, and our social structures are totally central to our survival.
And the octopus is basically none of those things.
Right. It is a completely soft-bodied, solitary creature living entirely underwater. Biologically speaking, I read that it's actually much closer to a garden snail than it is to a human being.
It is. I mean, if you trace our evolutionary family trees backward, you had to go back roughly 600 million years to find the last common ancestor that humans and octopuses shared.
Right. 600 million years.
Yeah, it's a massive gap.
Yeah.
And that ancestor was likely this microscopic flattened worm just inching its way along the primordial seafloor.
Wow.
Yeah. So evolution took that simple organism and just split it down two entirely different developmental paths.
So one path eventually leads to us, inventing the wheel and recording deep dives, and the other path leads to this squishy 8-armed sea creature.
Exactly.
But the text highlights that despite being essentially a giant sea snail, the octopus is undeniably brilliant. I mean, the tricks they do are wild. They navigate intricate mazes. They figure out the mechanics of screw-top jars just to get at the food inside.
Which is impressive enough on its own.
Totally. But the behavior that really stands out in the research is their tool use. Like some octopuses will carry heavy coconut shells across the ocean floor.
Right, they just drag them along.
Yeah, dragging them along just to have a mobile hiding spot to assemble later when they feel threatened.
And that behavior right there is a massive cognitive leap.
How so?
Well, a soft-bodied creature in a predator-heavy ocean obviously needs armor. But carrying a coconut shell isn't just a neat physical trick. It actually demonstrates an ability to anticipate a future state.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the octopus is not in danger right now, but it recognizes that it will be vulnerable later, and it actively plans for that future need.
Okay, that is wild. But what makes the octopus truly alien, at least according to the text, isn't just what it thinks, but where that intelligence physically lives.
Right, this is where it gets really strange.
Because, okay, the fundamental building blocks of intelligence are neurons, right? The specialized cells that process information and make up a nervous system.
Correct.
And humans keep the vast majority of our neurons densely packed inside our heads.
We are very centralized. But an octopus distributes its processing power.
Like throughout its body.
Yeah, exactly. Around 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are spread out along its 8 arms.
2/3.
Yep. And because of that unique biological distribution, each individual arm can taste the water, feel its surroundings, and even initiate actions somewhat independently of the central brain.
Okay, it reminds me of a corporate management structure.
Oh, I like that. How do you mean?
Well, human intelligence operates like a traditional company with a hyper-controlling CEO sitting in the corner office, the brain.
Right, just micromanaging every single sensory input and physical output.
Exactly. But the octopus's nervous system operates more like a coordinated committee of semi-independent branch offices.
That's a really great analogy.
So the central brain might set the overall goal, like, hey, we need to hunt for crab today. But the branch offices, the arms, are out in the field making their own localized decisions.
Yeah, they're deciding which rocks to reach under and how to coordinate the grasp based on what they're tasting and feeling in that exact moment.
It's so foreign. Like, how foreign is this way of thinking truly compared to our own experience?
I mean, that distributed intelligence is profoundly foreign to us. We are so anchored to our singular centralized stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Trying to imagine a mind that exists simultaneously as a unified whole and as 8 separate tasting thinking appendages, it really stretches the limits of our imagination.
It really does. So if the octopus shows us that a centralized brain isn't the only way to process complex information, our next stop in the gallery shows us that you don't need a heavy mammalian brain to perform high-level computations.
Yes, let's look at the sky.
Yeah, let's talk about corvids. And for those listening, corvids are the family of birds that includes crows, ravens, and magpies.
And they are the absolute perfect counter-argument to the old ladder-style insult of being bird-brained.
Right. I love that the text dismantles that.
It's a completely outdated idea.
Yeah.
For a long time, early scientists assumed that because mammals have these large, heavy brains, physical size must equal processing power.
So they thought a small bird brain simply couldn't hold complex cognitive software.
Exactly. They assumed it was a hardware limitation.
But corvids routinely shatter that assumption. I mean, the essay notes they are among the greatest problem solvers in the animal kingdom.
Oh, without a doubt.
They don't just use found tools like the octopus, they actually manufacture them. Like, researchers have observed crows taking a straight piece of wire, evaluating it, and deliberately bending it into a hook so they can fish a piece of meat out of a plastic tube.
Think about the cognitive load required for that task, though.
It's a lot, right?
It is. The bird has to recognize a problem, visualize a geometric solution that does not currently exist in its environment, understand the physical properties of the wire, and apply the necessary force to bend it.
All while looking at a piece of meat it can't even reach yet.
Right, and then use the tool to manipulate an object it cannot even directly see inside the tube. Many primate species, our closest genetic relatives, really struggle with that level of abstract physics.
Wait, really? A primate would struggle with that?
Oh, yeah. A lot of them wouldn't figure out the wire bending part.
That is amazing. And they also hold grudges. The text details how crows can recognize individual human faces and will hold a grudge against a specific researcher for years.
Yes, the facial recognition is incredible.
And they even teach their flock mates to scold that specific person on sight. But this brings up a massive question for me about the biological hardware.
Okay, what's that?
Well, humans and mammals have these big brains to hold all our intelligence. How on earth does a crow fit all of this, the tool manufacturing, the facial recognition, the social teaching, onto a physical brain the size of a walnut?
It's a great question. And it comes down to, well, abandoning the idea that all brains are built on the exact same architectural blueprint.
Okay.
The text explains that the avian brain is wired completely differently than a mammalian brain. Their neurons are packed incredibly densely, and the connective pathways between those neurons are heavily streamlined,
So it's kind of similar to the evolution of human technology then?
like computers.
Yeah. We moved from these massive, room-sized computers that relied on bulky vacuum tubes down to tiny silicon microchips. It's not about the overall physical size of the machine.
Right, it's about the efficiency.
Exactly. It's about how densely you can pack the transistors and how efficiently they route the information.
Precisely. That specific architecture allows for high-level cognitive function without all the weight, which is, rather important if you need to fly.
Haha, yeah, I guess a heavy brain would be a liability for a bird.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you see this dense processing power vividly in their ability to perform mental time travel.
Mental time travel.
Yeah. So a corvid will hide or cache food in hundreds of different locations across its territory to survive the harsh winters.
Right, like squirrels do.
Yes, but they don't just remember the geographic coordinates of the food. They remember what specific type of food they hid in each location.
Oh, wow.
And critically, they understand the rate of decay.
Wait, so if they bury a piece of meat in a pile of nuts?
They know exactly how many days they have to retrieve the meat before it spoils. They intentionally eat the perishables first and leave the non-perishable seeds for later in the season.
That is just mind-blowing. That requires spatial mapping, a complex memory timeline, and a clear understanding of time and decay, all running seamlessly on that walnut-sized microchip.
It really is definitive proof that nature found more than one way to construct a brilliant brain. But, intelligence isn't only about manipulating physical objects like wires and coconut shells.
Right, because for some species, the greatest cognitive demands come from navigating a complex social web.
Exactly. Which brings us back to the ocean.
Yes, specifically to the cetaceans, the marine mammal group that includes dolphins and whales. Unlike the solitary octopus, cetacean intelligence is inextricably linked to their societies.
They are deeply, deeply social creatures.
Right, their survival in the open ocean depends entirely on how they relate to, communicate with, and hunt alongside one another. They cooperate in these really clever, coordinated hunts.
And because vision is limited in murky ocean water, and smell is largely useless underwater, cetaceans have developed incredibly sophisticated auditory processing.
To maintain those social bonds over vast distances, right.
Exactly. Sound is everything to them.
And the real revelation for me in the source material was the concept of the signature whistle.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah. So individual dolphins develop this unique, highly specific frequency and rhythm pattern. And what researchers have found is that other dolphins in the pod will mimic that specific sound to call out to that particular individual.
They're basically assigning a vocal label to a specific member of their community.
Which is a name.
For all practical observable purposes, yes.
Yeah.
They're using names.
They are calling each other by name. That is so cool. But it goes beyond just communication, right? Because they are actively teaching each other, too.
Yes, they are.
The text points out that different pods of the exact same species of dolphin will develop entirely different, localized hunting techniques.
Depending on their environment.
Right, like one group might learn to trap fish by swimming in tightening circles to create this sort of net of mud, while another group, miles away, figures out how to hydroplane onto a muddy beach to snatch fish.
And they don't just do it. They teach these specific techniques to their calves.
Yeah. It reminds me of a family passing down a generational recipe, where it isn't instinct coded into their DNA, it's learned behavior that belongs to a specific community. So, does this mean dolphins actually possess a simple form of culture?
I mean, yes, that is the textbook scientific definition of culture. Culture is the non-genetic transmission of habits, information, and traditions.
Wow.
When a behavior is learned socially rather than inherited genetically, you are looking at a cultural species.
Okay, so if an animal has a name and participates in a distinct culture, it implies they have a rich inner life and a clear sense of identity. But how do scientists actually test for self-awareness in animals?
It's notoriously difficult. But that brings us to one of the most famous behavioral experiments mentioned in our sources, the mirror test.
Right, the mirror test.
It was designed as a gold standard to check for self-awareness. And the mechanics are really simple. A researcher secretly places a mark usually a dot of odorless paint on an animal's body in a place where the animal cannot normally see it.
Like on its forehead.
Exactly. Then the animal is presented with a mirror.
And if the animal looks in the glass, notices the dot on the reflection, and immediately reaches up to investigate its own forehead, it implies a profound cognitive leap.
Right, because it means the animal understands that the entity in the mirror is not a stranger.
It's a reflection of its own physical self.
Yes, and great apes, elephants, dolphins, and some corvids have all passed this test.
But the author of our source essay points out a massive structural flaw in how we interpret this test.
A huge flaw, yes.
Because the mirror test is a fundamentally visual puzzle.
It is entirely reliant on sight. And because it was designed by human beings, well, we are intensely visual primates.
Right, we navigate our reality through sight. So when we want to test another creature's intelligence, we instinctively build a visual obstacle course.
Exactly. But in doing so, we ignore the concept of the Umwelt.
The Umwelt. What is that exactly?
It's a German word used in biology that means the unique sensory world that a specific animal inhabits.
Okay, and the essay uses the example of a dog to illustrate this perfectly. Anyone listening who has a dog knows that a dog's reality is constructed entirely out of scent.
They read the world chemically.
Right. So if a dog stands in front of a mirror, it sees a flat piece of glass that just smells like glass. It doesn't smell like a dog. So, of course, the dog fails the visual mirror test completely.
But has no reason to interact with it as a dog.
Exactly. But if you threw a human being into a room and asked us to identify ourselves purely based on the unique chemical signature of our own scent left on a fire hydrant,
We would fail completely.
we would look incredibly stupid to a dog. So aren't we basically judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree here? Couldn't a dog have a deeply rich sense of self built out of scent rather than sight?
I agree completely, and the text agrees. The failure isn't in the animal's cognitive ability. The failure is in the design of the test. A dog absolutely might possess a highly complex sense of self, but it's a self constructed out of a continuous narrative of scent.
Rather than a visual portrait.
Yes. And this is the central, humbling difficulty of studying animal minds. When we measure another creature, we can only build tests out of the building blocks of our own sensory experience.
So we risk marking an animal as stupid simply because it's clever in a way we just didn't think to check for. We punish them for not being human enough.
Exactly. And this leads directly into what scientists call the two perennial traps of animal observation.
Okay, what are the traps? Because if our tests are so biased by our own human bubbles, how do scientists actually study these animals without getting it totally wrong?
Well, the first trap scientists have to avoid is overreading, which is anthropomorphism.
Right, projecting human thoughts onto animals.
Yes. It's our natural human temptation to project complex human emotions and thought processes onto animal behavior that might actually be driven by far simpler mechanics.
Like when a dog tilts its head at you, it is so tempting to assume it's deeply pondering the existential meaning of your words.
When in reality, it's probably just adjusting its ear canals to pinpoint the source of a sound.
Right, exactly.
So scientists have to guard against that trap by insisting on rigorous, repeatable experiments rather than relying on charming anecdotes. But the second trap is far more insidious, and it's called underreading.
Underreading.
Yes, this is the mechanistic assumption that animals are basically just simple machines, running entirely on blind robotic instinct.
So denying them any inner life or subjective experience at all, it's like treating them as biological wind-up toys.
Or simple computer algorithms, where a specific input strictly equals a specific output.
Just because it's convenient, or because we can't easily see the evidence. But why did science lean so heavily into that trap?
Well, historically, it was a reaction against the overly sentimental nature writing of the past. For a large part of the 20th century, the scientific community demanded rigid, objective behaviorism.
Ah, I see.
Attributing thoughts, intentions, or feelings to an animal was seen as deeply unscientific. So it was just safer for a researcher's career to treat an animal like a complex thermostat.
But the text argues that the entire modern era of animal cognition is essentially the story of that thermostat model just crumbling to pieces.
Animal by animal, experiment by experiment. With every new, cleverly designed study that actually counts for an animal's unique welt, we keep revealing capacities that we flatly denied were possible just a few decades ago.
Right. We find tool use in octopuses, time travel in crows, and cultural transmission in dolphins. So how does modern science balance between these two extremes now?
The only intellectually honest position left for a modern scientist is one of genuine uncertainty and open curiosity. We have to take other minds seriously.
We have to acknowledge their depth without pretending we can magically climb inside their heads and know exactly what it feels like to be them.
Exactly. We have to observe them on their own terms, not ours.
So, what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? What is the main takeaway from all the research we've explored today?
I'd say the deepest lesson here is that we have to retire that ladder of intelligence for good.
We really do. We have to tear it down and throw it away. There is no single vertical scale of cognition with humanity standing triumphantly at the summit.
None at all.
Instead, we live in this magnificent branching bush of different minds. Each branch was shaped by millions of years of evolution to thrive in its own specific, unique environment.
You have the distributed, localized, tasting intelligence of the octopus branch.
You have the dense, tool-making, time-traveling foresight of the corvid branch.
And you have the highly fluid, social, name-calling world of the dolphin branch.
And look, the human branch is extraordinary in its own right, absolutely. But it is just one branch among many. It is not the universal yardstick by which all other life must be measured.
So the next time you look at the animals we share this planet with, whether it's a bird working at your backyard feeder, or a dog sniffing a fire hydrant on the street, or a documentary about creatures in the deep ocean, remember this.
You are surrounded by real, astonishing intelligence. It isn't a lesser, flawed version of your mind. It is something completely, beautifully different.
The hard part was never their cleverness. The hard part was our own inability to recognize minds that don't look and operate exactly like our own.
Exactly. Which leaves me with a final, slightly mind-bending thought for you to mull over as we wrap up.
Oh, let's hear it.
If we struggle this deeply to recognize, measure, and understand the intelligence of creatures, that we actually share a planet with creatures we share an evolutionary history and an environment with,
Right.
what does that mean for our search for life out in the stars?
That is a chilling thought.
Right. If we were to ever encounter a truly alien intelligence out in the universe, would we even possess the sensory tools to recognize it as a mind at all? Think about that the next time you lock eyes with an animal. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.